What's up guys, and welcome back to Tech Plan. Today we are doing an Anthurium seed experiment, and this is going to show you that mold is not a big deal. Let's check it out. So this experiment is really going to test how much effort you truly have to put into preparing Anthurium seeds for germination. So this is the typical way. I'm going to show you that first. It's kind of painstakingly meticulous. You take each little berry off of the spadix, you squeeze either the 1 or 2 seeds out that are in there. Then you have to try and find a way to sort of clean them off. I've tried a few different methods. For me, it works pretty well if you dump them all into a water bottle or some container that you can shake a lot. And that way you can shake most of the pulp and skins off of the crushed berries, leaving the seeds sink to the bottom, and you can pour off the rest. And once you're done doing that, you'll have perfect little, well, not perfect, but pretty darn clean seeds that you can then spread on some sphagnum moss or whatever other medium you want to use, and they should germinate. However, it can take forever if you have a lot of berries. So that leads us to our next footage, and that is a whole bunch of Anthurium gracile spadix full of berries. I really don't want to process them all. Some you can see are a little more dehydrated because they're older, and those are a little harder to squeeze the berries out because it's more like sticky, if that makes any sense. I first discovered this method a while back by just being lazy, so now I'm going to show you what my laziness discovered. So what you're going to need is a tub of moist, kind of wet sphagnum moss, and we're going to start with that, and then we're going to do 2 experiments here. One, I'm just going to lay berries that I have not squeezed out any seeds, just berries with seeds inside, on one side, and then I'm going to lay the entire spadix with berries on the other side. And that's pretty much it. We are going to put a lid on this, leave it under some grow lights where it's going to stay nice, warm, and humid, and we're just going to see what happens. Alright, and like typical, we're going to let some time go past, and it has been about a week. So let's check on them and see how they're doing. Right away, some of you are probably panicking at the amount of mold that you're seeing on these spadix and the berries, but don't worry too much. I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. Looking a little closer though at all the moldy spadix and berries, you'll see some berries are actually naturally, I don't know if they're absorbing water or what, but they're sort of bursting open and revealing the seeds, which is pretty cool. Don't ask me why I'm using a sprouted Monstera node to point to this, but it's just what I had sitting on the table next to this when I was filming it. But yeah, it's pretty interesting behavior to see the seeds bursting open like that, releasing the seeds, and they look pretty clean. Alright, we are going to skip ahead about a month from the previous footage, so it puts us at about a month and a week. So let's check them out. So right away from the wide shot, you can already see a massive difference. There is a lot more algae on the left side where all the spadix were placed, and everything is looking pretty brown. There are some sprouting, however, so it's not doing terrible, but still, if we start to look at the right side, we can see it's a little bit more behind. Almost all the berries on the right side that were just individually placed have sprouted and are much further ahead. It looks like closer up that the spadix, as it's sort of like dried and rotted, it's trapped the seeds in a, not a shell, but it's sort of contained in the rotting material, and they haven't sprouted nearly as fast. But I'm still not worried, because if you look really close, you can start to see all the little sprouts coming out of the rotting spadix. Alright, we are going to skip ahead another 2 months. So that puts us at about 4-ish months, maybe 4 months and a week. And right off the bat in the wide shot, we can see there are sprouts everywhere in this container. There are a few differences between the left and right, and it's switched from the previous footage, but the one with all the green algae all around and the much thicker amount of sprouts, that is where all the spadix were placed, and then the more sparser ones are where the berries were placed. So don't focus too much on the number of sprouts because it was uneven from the start, just focus on how far they've gotten on either side. You can see on the side with the spadix that there's still a little mold, but not much left. It's pretty much consumed everything that it needed to, and we're kind of seeing a little bit more slime mold and some other algae on the side with the spadix, but overall, the seedlings are not harmed at all. Across the board, they all look a little bit nutrient starved, so I am going to add some Osmocote for the first time ever and see what happens. I'm not sure if this is just going to introduce more nutrients for algae or if it's just going to help our seedlings, but we'll find out in due time. But overall, things are looking good for both sides. Alright, and we are going to skip a total of 6 months from the very start of this and see how they're doing. From the wide shot, you can see they're all alive and well. I mean, they've been in this container for an awfully long time. A little bit too long in my opinion, but most of my stuff gets left too long. But hey, it's all part of the experiment, I guess. Looking at them a little closer, it does look like the Osmocote from 2 months before has helped. They don't look very deficient. Usually by this time in the bins, they're starting to look a little yellow, a little sickly, because they've just been in there way too long. The other only big difference I can really see between the Spadix side and just the plain berry side is the berry ones seem to be a little larger, actually, a little further ahead. I don't know if that's because the Spadix side are so much more densely placed together or what, but that is a slight difference. However, I'm going to say both sides were very successful as far as germination. It looks like we have a ton of seedlings that survived. I don't really have a good way to quantify how many didn't survive, but if you're doing this with like a mass production, it might be worth just throwing the Spadix in there. One of the only side effects, I suppose, that planting like this is the ones that are really close together, you're going to have to separate them. They do separate pretty well at this stage, but the roots are pretty tangled, so you might want to get the sphagnum moss a little more wet. For me, it dried out quite a bit, and it's a little harder to pull them apart, but if you get it wet, usually with a little bit of shaking and vibrating, they come apart pretty easily. Again, I really want to illustrate as well that like the algae, the molds, really didn't play much in any sort of role of killing off seedlings. You can see over time, over the last 6 months, just more and more kept sprouting up, and the mold wasn't a big issue. They were covered, in fact, at one point, and they were covered in algae, slime mold, everything, you name it, and it still didn't affect the plants. So I think a lot of people are seeing these in their prop bins and they start to panic and think it's not working, but I wouldn't worry too much. Unless your plants are turning into actual mush and dying, it's probably not going to do anything wrong. Well guys, that pretty much sums up this video. I hope you enjoyed it and it gave you some perspective on why mold doesn't always mean a really bad thing, and sometimes your plants can be totally unaffected by it. Now, if you're going to try something like this at home, don't put all your eggs in one basket like I did, and try it with a few just to see how it works in your setup, because everyone's setup's different and I can't guarantee success on anything I do here that is going to also work for you. So definitely try it in a small batch and see if it works. As always guys, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I'll see you next time.